All right, everybody. It's week 4. Welcome to the 2020 Big 12 podcast. I'm Coach DangerZoneh of the TCU Horned Frogs.
And I'm Coach TuscanSota of the Baylor Bears.
And we're here. We're going to be talking a lot about recruiting. It's week 4. It's exciting stuff. We got over 30 players have committed in the Big 12, and some classes are already starting to shape up. Some teams had a pretty good lead, have done a good job building depth. We're going to talk about each team, go through kind of what they've done, how they're getting set up for the season, and what's going on. So just like last time, we're going to start by going backwards through the Big 12 power rankings. This week, Texas has actually taken the top spot in those rankings at number 1, Texas Tech behind them, Oklahoma State number 3, West Virginia number 4, Kansas Jayhawks number 5. Starting off the bottom half, you have Kansas State, TCU 7, Baylor Bears all the way down at number 8, the Iowa State Cyclones at 9, and finally our first team of the night, the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, the Oklahoma Sooners may be last in the power rankings, but they are not in the recruiting rankings.
Absolutely right with that. Right now, week 4, it looks like Oklahoma took about close to 15 recruits, firing off on all cylinders, really.
I think they hired around 16, actually.
16, most likely. You're right, 16.
Around 16.
All cylinders, focusing on depth. We got one of their top recruits right now is a Jaden Douglas from Oklahoma, 4.5 potential power back right here.
Yeah, now Jaden Douglas is a guy who fits really well for Oklahoma because you can definitely see him redshirting a year, and then he's a guy who might be asked to play as a freshman because you have Maurice White there who's going to be a junior next year, and he's really good.
Yeah.
He's the best player on this Oklahoma team, looks like, and he might not stay around for his senior year. But even if he does, you still need Jaden Douglas, who will start as a sophomore, at the very least.
And by then, either way, Jaden Douglas will be more than ready to fill in the spot that will be left behind by Maurice White. Stays another year or not.
Yeah, it's nice that they went and grabbed a power back to kind of learn from Maurice, get a couple years underneath him, 1 or 2, depending on, like I said, if he stays or not. And he's definitely the gem of this class, I believe. You also have another high potential guy, Ray Trevino, out of Luther, Oklahoma. He's a blocking tight end. His strengths definitely lie with the blocking, but he's going to have to learn how to catch because they don't have too many targets. Ty Royal's good. They have some other guys coming up, but Oklahoma tight ends, they also have Freddie Vanstone on their roster, who's a freshman tight end, also blocking, a high potential guy. So one of those two are going to have to learn how to catch.
Agreed with that. And that's going to be a position that's going to be very solid for them in the long run as well.
Mm-hmm.
As far as another position goes, one that kind of caught my eye was a Julian McGinnis, another recruit who just committed last week to Oklahoma, linebacker, 4.0 potential. And he's definitely going to be filling a spot for the Sooners pretty soon, whether it's going to be depth or not. Looking at Oklahoma's linebackers, it's something that they really need depth in. They have Jeremy Green, who's going to be a junior next season, and they have Jude Curry as a sophomore right now. But besides that, the only linebacker right there is a Gabriel Whitman, who's about to graduate. So, this is something that should be a need for them.
Yeah, outside linebacker, they have, like I said, 3 guys on their roster. Gabriel Whitman's about to graduate. They need to sign more than just this one guy. Jeremy Green is a stud, though. He's a stud coming out of Texas 2 years ago, and he's one of their best players on their defense. He still has a couple years at Oklahoma. They also have the freshman Jaden Curry, but that's it. Their red shirts, I don't believe they have any outside linebackers there. They might have to look to moving some of those inside linebackers they signed over, but maybe Cameron Werner Wynn or Bruce Greenfield, give them some time to play outside, but they're going to need to sign more. Their class, I think that's where they're kind of turning to. looking for depth in this class at the outside linebacker position.
Agreed.
But
as far as depth goes, Oklahoma definitely seems to be on the right track for that.
For sure. They've had a few classes over the past years where their coach Chicago Ted has kind of looked to sign his top 2 or 3 guys, get some star recruits, guys like Graham Burnett or Maurice White, who make a big impact on the field, but they also run into the problems where they don't have players. Like, they have positions where players haven't come, and being in Oklahoma, sometimes it's kind of hard to pull walk-ons, so they just run further and further through their depth and have serious problems there.
Yeah. Speaking of at least quarterback position, they are in a battle right now with Toledo for a quarterback from Texas, a 4.5 star, Nick Braum.
Yeah. Nick Braum was probably the second best quarterback in the state of Texas. Second or third, I believe SMU signed a 5-star. Yeah. You also had a few stud guys. I can take a look here. But Braum was one of the top guys. It was a very deep quarterback class in Texas this year because you had Marcus Burden, who ended up going to SMU, and then right after him was Nick Braum. This is a battle. There's also another person, but they're not even close. Like, Nick Braum's kind of leaning towards Oklahoma or Toledo. And if I'm Oklahoma, I feel good about this. It seems like a guy who wants to stay around in state. He wants to get close to home, and Oklahoma's got a pretty solid lean. At least that's where he's leaning right now. Toledo is a school who recruits nationwide. They're not afraid to go places. And they get people who want to head out of home and for some reason want to go to Ohio. And I don't know if Nick Braum's that guy, though.
Yeah, they got something going on in Toledo, but it's bringing, nationwide.
And Toledo 2021 champs, though. We'll see if Nick Braum wants to follow in their footsteps. But right now, I think if I'm going to make a prediction, I'm sending Braum to Oklahoma. Now,
that's kind of what I was thinking as well. But did you want to say a reason behind that? Or?
Well, I think because you have Oklahoma is clearly not satisfied with their play from Eric Pope. Sorry, and he's only a freshman, so it says a lot that they're recruiting a guy like Braum, who in 1 or 2 years will probably take the reins from Pope, especially if he doesn't step up his play, because he may be the worst quarterback in the Big 12 right now, which says a lot. Him or maybe August Blank from Oklahoma State, where people start to struggle.
Agreed.
I don't believe they're redshirting anyone to kind of fill in this place. So Nick Braum, a couple years down the line, might be that guy to fill in the line of amazing Oklahoma quarterbacks, top 10 draft picks. It's a position where they have a lot of pride. And when you have someone like Eric Pope who hasn't lived up to that, even though he is only a freshman, they kind of look quickly to replace him.
Yeah, I think this is definitely going to put a chip on Pope's shoulder in the long run. And he is only a freshman. And I think this is also a scheme that Oklahoma isn't necessarily familiar with running either. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely not only a challenge for Pope, but also for the coach as well.
Because Oklahoma tends to like pocket quarterbacks. At least that's their recent history. There's only really been 3 Oklahoma quarterbacks, which is crazy considering how long we've been around in the years of playing with Oklahoma. But they had a couple years with Robert Price, then 3 years of
Brookshire.
Actually, maybe only 2 of Brookshire, because he played some as a freshman, and then he had his sophomore and junior years, and then declared early. Then you had 3 of Graham Burnett who declared early as well. So maybe Braum's looking for a quick way to the NFL, but if you're looking for quarterback experience, I don't think there's any better coach than Chicago Ted.
Agreed.
Then he's also in some battles for a tight end, a depth, just a 3.5 star. He's fighting North Texas for him, and given the other battles he's in, I'm going to send James Gold, that tight end, it's in North Texas. He's more valuable there, and I think he realizes he'll get more play time.
Agreed.
And let's see who else.
I think Martin McCray running a run blocking center from Iowa, but this one's definitely a bit more interesting just because, um, I mean, it's a center. It's a center from Iowa, and it's between Iowa State, Iowa, and Oklahoma. And I think they're joining this fight a little bit late, but we'll just have to wait and see because he's definitely going to Iowa State territory.
Yeah, it really is hard to compete with teams like that, especially when Iowa State probably has a lead. They've probably been in his ear since, say, his junior year. It's a 4-star center. He's gotten some hype through the years, but Oklahoma, like, they've signed most of their class. Iowa State, I don't believe they've signed anyone, or they've signed 2 players so far.
Yeah, they've only signed 2 players so far.
They have more competition. They have more places they can look, and Oklahoma can do a good job of making him seem like they're his top target, but it's always tough to pluck people out of corn country.
Yeah, this is something that we'll probably have our eyes on for maybe a while. We'll see.
And then I think the biggest remaining battle for Oklahoma is the in-state. They're going against head-to-head against Oklahoma State for Jermaine Holmes.
Jeremiah
Holmes, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
4.5 outside or inside linebacker. He's a will guy, so he's a guy who probably can play both inside and outside.
Yeah, looking at Oklahoma's current depth right now, this is a guy who's going to be more than prepared in the future. Like right now, they got Theo Ritchie from Willow Ridge Land, Texas, freshman inside linebacker. But by the time that by the time that Holmes if he gets Holmes, that's definitely going to be a linebacker core that's going to be more than ready by the time he's on the field. So.
Oh yeah, Holmes is definitely going to be a guy who plays quickly, but at the very least he'll provide depth at the position, and they almost need, like I said, depth more at the outside position than the inside, especially considering they've already signed a couple of inside linebackers this class. I believe they've already signed 2, so he's going to be a guy who might have to do a lot for him. I think he's one of Oklahoma State's top guys, and they're not going to get rid of him easily. So
yeah,
we're going to have to see what they do there. But we'll make a prediction on him a little later once we talk about the Cowboys.
Yeah. Oklahoma State Cowboys?
Oklahoma State Cowboys. But the next team we're talking about is the one that's going head-to-head for that center against Oklahoma, head-to-head to Iowa State. The Iowa State Cyclones.
Yeah.
Now, Iowa State's signed not nearly as many as Oklahoma, but they have a couple pieces to the puzzle. Yeah. They signed a wide receiver who is no Tom Oldham, but he's a 3.5-star guy with some potential, someone who can make plays on the field. And they also signed a 4.5-star punter who, as we all know, is more significant than I think people give credit for, that position at least.
Yeah, I think this punter could potentially be someone that's going to be starting for Cyclones as well, but Troy Spears also adds some necessary depth to looks to be rebuilding this year as well. Mm-hmm. So
because they lost a lot when they had Tom Oldham declare early, and their depth at wide receiver isn't the best. They do have 3 guys redshirting, 1 guy graduating, so they have players there, but they always need more. They're going to have, especially when this guy, Troy Spears, gets onto the field, they're going to have him redshirt for a year almost certainly. He's not good enough to go out there now. But after a redshirt year, we've seen guys come out of high school, not the best rating, 3.5 stars, and make an impact, especially at the wide receiver position. We've seen that time and time again in the Big 12. So he's a guy who's probably going to be depth. Iowa State's probably going to look for some top guy to sign, but he's a guy they really need. I think Ben Groves right now is stud of their class.
Yeah. I'm going to take a look at who they have as their star player. But as far as...
Yeah, I was trying to look at the same thing.
Nah, you're good. You're good.
But right now...
As far as battle goes for...
Oh, God.
They are in a battle right now. Actually, a few. It looks like this one's going to be interesting, but Vaughn Shepard, quarterback from Nebraska, and they're going to go toe-to-toe with Nebraska to see if they can snatch this quarterback from them.
Yeah. And that is a tough place to steal a recruit from. People are indoctrinated there in Nebraska from the beginning. But his star player is Von Shepard. Yeah. So that is the guy for him. That is the guy they want, the guy they feel they need. And that's not Nebraska's star player because Nebraska went all in on Calvin McKay, the wide receiver.
Yeah.
They do have him. So now they can put a lot of effort on Vaughn, but is that enough to overcome what Iowa State can do? Especially how much it means. Like, players take it very personally. They take it as a compliment so much when a school tells them, you're our guy, we need you. That means a lot to each of these players. So hearing every week that they're your star, like they're the ones that are going to make this class, it's going to be hard for them to turn down. I think we're going to get into an extended battle between the two, and it's going to be interesting to see how much Nebraska continues to focus on him.
That's something that we're going to have to see in the future as well, because Nebraska is going all in this guy, and so you can only see how far it goes as the season continues. Looking at a few other battles right now, I do know that there's another pretty big. I mean, there is that center we just discussed, Martin
McGray, and he's going to have as big of an impact on Iowa State as he would Oklahoma. And he's actually looking at another center, though, Mateo Champion. That's an awesome name, Mateo Champion, the 3.5-star from Missouri.
Yeah, and I think, as far I was looking at that battle, and I was at least, and Mateo Chapman, Iowa State is recruiting from Missouri, and Missouri is in the lead right now for this specific center. But I think he would, if Iowa State does get this guy, I think that he would add some necessary depth, because the current center, Russell Daigle, JUCO, he's a junior, 4.5-star from Georgia, and I think the Cyclones are trying to get ready to see if this guy is going to leave early or not.
Yeah, that's the question. He could be a one and done here at Iowa State, and then his backup Leo Medley will be gone because he'll graduate. Can save him for a year, and Jermaine Powell, the senior, who injured his knee in practice earlier this year, so he took a medical red shirt for this season. He's only a 3-star guy, but that's probably their starter next year. So center is an important position, but I'm going to go out and predict that Iowa State falls short of getting Mateo Champion, but they end up pulling off Martin McGray because I think he's a guy that they need. I think Oklahoma is going to fall out of the battle pretty quickly, and I think it's going to be all Iowa State eventually. They're going to have to fight Iowa off, but they'll do it.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on for sure. And they are in one more battle, it looks like, for a Mike linebacker from Iowa going up against their rival for a Joel Bauman, a 4-star linebacker from Iowa. Forget, just to make it correct.
Yeah.
Looking at their depth right now, this is someone that I think will definitely benefit their front seven for sure. But Amadou Weston looks like he actually has a few more years on the Iowa State team, but this is a guy that could surely pack a punch and really give Iowa State the strength they need for their linebacker core.
Yeah, Amadou Weston is a guy who we'll see, but we'll see about how long he stays, but he's a 3.5-star, so he's really got 3 more years after this. He's only a freshman, which is really impressive. The fact that he's coming in and starting immediately, and maybe this looks like a move because he's particularly a will. He's playing in a 3-4 or 4-3 right now. Could we see Iowa State move to a 3-4? Let Amadou Weston play a more natural spot and let a guy like Joel Bauman step into the Mike position?
it's definitely going to be. It's definitely a lot of good questions right here. I think that they could pull off the 3-4. They would have to, get the right lineman for
Mhm.
this specific scheme as well. Because looking at the defensive tackles, they are using the 4-3 at the moment. But the only guy that, if they were to move to a 3-4, their best guy would be a Kai Voss, and he's more of a pass rusher than a run stopper. And so I think that the 3-4 could work. But as far as just having all the right players, it's definitely something that head coach Minnesotan would have to look at.
Yeah, to work around, and it's not always the worst to have a guy somewhat playing out of scheme, especially guys talented as Voss. But once this linebacker gets up there, once Bowman can play, he'll probably Voss will probably be gone. He's a junior now, so you're really looking at a guy like, say, Tawa Elolis. I'm sorry, I butchered that name so bad, but he's a freshman who's redshirting this year. But even he is a 3.5-star and more of a pass rusher. That's who they really focused on. They also have Ian Johnson, who's a will linebacker, who's a 4-star, and Rashad Thomas, another 3-star Mike linebacker. So they do have guys in those positions. And then finally, they're looking at, there's still more. I think they're going to, if we're making predictions here, I don't think they end up with Bauman. I think they managed to take the Marlon McRae from Iowa, but I think they lose some of those in-state battles, and I think Iowa ends up taking him. And then for the outside linebacker position, Malachi Chavis is still kind of fitting into that same position, but I don't see them taking him from Missouri. It's so hard to take guys from out of state, and I think Missouri is going to do all they can to keep guys in state.
And Missouri is pretty much the only team, or at least the only college football team in their state. So I definitely think it's important for at least those small states to really keep their guys there, at least keep that in-state strength going. So,
yeah. And then, they also have a corner they're looking at who isn't too keen on Iowa State. They're kind of falling behind. They're actually favoring Western Michigan, but Miles Bradford, who's a 4-star man, a really talented player, and would fit well with their very man defense that Iowa State likes to run. And he'd, like I said, probably redshirt a year, then fill in right as the number one guy, especially when they don't have any other people redshirting. So we'll see how they do there. I'm not quite going to make a position because I think they're pretty prediction. I think they're pretty far behind on this guy from Wisconsin. But
yeah,
especially if Wisconsin wants him because they can step in.
Yeah, they haven't stepped in yet. Like this is 3 teams out of state that are going to Wisconsin. And they're telling Bradford, like, hey, we really think that you're a player that'll make an impact for our team. And Iowa State definitely is one of those 3 teams that are telling them that they can make an impact, whether it's right now or in a few years.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, you're good. We really don't know how far this battle is going to go. Western Michigan is still in the lead. Don't know if Wisconsin's going to jump in there or not, but Iowa State could, and just get up to the front.
Yeah. But you always worry Wisconsin, they have the in-state pressure, say they decide to offer him a scholarship, and I think he kind of might lean that way, even after just a scholarship offer, maybe a few couple visits and talking to him. So when you're going out of state, you always have to worry about the big in-state schools. So it's going to be an interesting battle to see. But let's say right now, I think he ends up at Western Michigan, unfortunately, for the Cyclones.
Agreed. And I think this might wrap it up for Iowa State. I don't see any battles necessarily. So
no, they got a lot they got to worry about, and we'll see how they play that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about the Bears now. Those next one's up.
I have a few things I'd like to say about my Bears, but definitely similar situation to Oklahoma after this past week. A few players from the Texas area said yes, they are going to commit to going to Waco next season. of those was a very highly touted recruit from Bryan, Texas, of all places.
Yeah.
Garrett Powers.
Garrett Powers.
Bringing him right out of Aggie land to the land of Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, he's a little bit further down the Brazos, but he decided to head up to Waco, and he might be the best player in the country. Like,
arguably.
I think he's the biggest impact of any player in the country because the only guy as talented as him might be the center from California, and I'll always take a Mike linebacker over a center as far as impact goes.
I think, yeah, that center in California is also going to San Jose State, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. But Garrett Powers there, and
they really need him.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Powers goes. He really sticks out from the rest of the recruits. I think the only other recruit that I can think of at the moment is another commit who just came from Auburn's Brett Combs.
Wait.
Again, like.
Oh yeah, I saw linebackers. Yeah, he went to Auburn, I believe. Brett Combs. He was their top guy, and they got him right away.
Yeah, another highly touted recruit. These guys are now going to be committed. As far as Powers goes, I think that he's going to make a very good impact, especially for a team that is going to lose two of their starting inside linebackers after this season. Ned Denny, second-year starter, is really doing all that he can to help out this Baylor defense, but after 3 games where the quarterback has thrown more than 250 yards, pretty much burned the defense the first 2 games. He's really this is a team that's desperate for a good, a stud. And I think Powers is really has the potential to show what kind of potential that he has the next season. So
yeah,
definitely fills in a need for the Bears.
So he's an immediate starter for you all, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he's gonna come in.
This is a guy I don't think needs a red shirt at all.
No, and I think he'd be insulted with a red shirt.
Yeah,
I think you give him one, and
it'd be an insult.
Yeah, he's a guy. If you give him a red shirt, he's declaring after his sophomore year.
Exactly. Might as well just put him out there.
Yeah, exactly. He's a guy who's going to be in college for 3 years, no matter what. And well, you never know. But
we really never know. But again, it's going to be interesting next year because he's going to be in one of those 2 starting positions because Baylor runs a 3-4, and joining him will be another freshman. This guy's being redshirted though, and Elias Ladd, who's more of a weak side linebacker. So it's going to be interesting how Baylor mixes in the strong side and a weak side and kind of see how their strengths will play together as well.
Yeah, it really is. But there's really a lot to like about Powers, and he's definitely the one. Whenever you look at Baylor's class, you're going to keep coming to because when you look at the Baylor defense, as far as stars go, you really expect Kyle Cunningham to be that guy. And you've expected that throughout his entire career. And sometimes he is, but I know you know better than I do. Sometimes he just gets torched. You've seen that with the UCLA defense or offense. You saw it with Arkansas. It was a little better against Cal. They played him closer, but you can still see quarterbacks don't respect him as much. But it's going to be hard not to respect Powers in there.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a mistake the first 2 games. The first game, Kyle Cunningham was pretty much defending a linebacker.
You're a offensive lineman, basically.
I still don't know why UCLA put that guy as their number 1 receiver, but he's that guy was completely shut down the game, but it made no sense.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, he was really defending a guy that didn't need to be defended at all. The second game, he got torched completely.
Yeah. But he did a great job defending that guy.
Yeah. But there was other positions that I think had a few similar issues, and I don't know, as far as cornerbacks go, Baylor's, they're going to be in a bit of a rough spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's Cunningham, he's pretty much their tallest corner, and he's going to be able to keep up with those very big receivers. But again, after that, after the 6'4" Kyle Cunningham, you have a 5'10" Deshaun Tinsley and a Travis at 5'11". So it's just
and we'll see. Baylor is actually in contention for a couple cornerbacks, a couple more zone guys. Before we talk about it, let's go through the rest of the class. They also brought a total of 7 recruits. That is an impressive number to sign. Granted, it's not Oklahoma, which is what everyone's going to compare people to, but 7 is a great start to a class. You got 3 4-star guys in there to go alongside Powers. I think once they saw him going, the rest of the state, especially defensive guys, they knew where they wanted to head. So you have Samuel McGee, who's going to be a pretty good defensive end for y'all in a couple years. He doesn't need to start immediately because there is depth at that position for Baylor. And then you also have Jason Parker, who's a free safety kind of in the same position. When you have Omar Bush is going to be there for a couple years. And then even after him, there's a guy whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Who's a 3.5-star player. Ahi.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but
That's why I recruited him.
But he's another guy who could be a big player, or David Hester, who's redshirting right now.
Yeah, we have a lot of good red shirts right now that are waiting in the rings. Like, the one thing that we really focused on was a mix of depth while trying to slowly upgrade our positions right now. So like David Hester, he's going to be a pretty good depth player, someone that we're going to have there just in case whenever the free safety Omar Bush or whoever is going to be taking that position needs to, take a few seconds out of the game. And I think that's going to be really important for us. The rest of our depth, we have a Justice Mabry two-gap who's really going to help us in the defense, DT position. And we're right now recruiting at least who could be his backup, and Noel Gaston. So
yeah, and then you also have Devin Huntley, who's going to be the backup for Zachary McHale, who's fighting some of his own demons while he redshirts.
Yep.
It's going to be fun seeing those two on the field. Other outside linebackers you have, Hillman's going to be gone by the time these guys play, but
yeah, no, both linebackers are going to be gone, but we definitely have
both those guys playing alongside Garrett Powers in the middle. It's going to be fun to see.
Hillman's going to be gone, Neville's going to be gone, but thankfully Frederick Grapp should be ready to take up the linebacker position at least until who knows. So,
All right, now looking forward for Baylor, we have a couple wide receivers that are considering them. You have the great name Malik Aboy Afua, who is considering Baylor and TCU. Then you also have Elke Denson considering Baylor and Tulsa.
Yep.
And is this the position Baylor's really struggling at? I need to look up here.
Well, considering that someone decided to leave us very randomly before the season started, this is a position that Baylor's really trying to fix up right now. They have a really good receiver in Lamont Wilder, but they're already looking towards the future just in case, and maybe hopefully putting a few more guys around him by the time this guy's a senior. And so they're looking at Malik Afua and Alki Denson to really bolster up what could be a Baylor wide receiver core that's in desperate need for, a slot receiver. So
yeah, early reports of those two have hung out at camps, want to play with each other. Maybe in the group of people with tough names to pronounce, but they've talked to each other, and there's a good chance Baylor ends up with both of them. Definitely like their chances for Denson, especially when their biggest competition's an out-of-state school, and you always want to convince Texas guys to stay home. And then we'll talk more about why Afua later, but I also think he kind of wants to be a number one guy, and there's some teams he might not be able to do that for, so we'll see. But
yeah,
he's right now
looking towards the future for wide receiver, and we think that Afua is definitely going to be able to be right there. So,
and then looking down to help protect your future quarterback and offense, you have Brian Rouse, who is an offensive guard, another 4-star guy who Baylor and UTSA are fighting for.
Yep. And yeah, that's definitely going to be a battle we're fighting right now with UTSA. We're fighting them also in a few other battles. But Baylor's really trying to, bulk up on that offensive line. An issue that we're really having this season right now, but this is definitely going to be an upgrade with Brian Rouse if we hopefully recruit him.
Yeah.
He'll be a good fit alongside Alexander Holman, who is a current redshirt right now from Lubbock. So,
yeah, when you look down at Baylor's offensive guard chart, you have Theo Cowan Sr., Ibrahim Skies Sr., Muhammad Daughtry Sr., Benjamin Bush Sr., then you also have James Cherry, who's a junior, Parker Kolb, who's a junior. These guys are going to be gone soon.
Yeah, no, this is a position that Baylor's looked into for quite some time and realizing that a lot of these guys are definitely aging now as opposed to 2 seasons ago when there's a lot of young guys on the team. And fortunately, a lot of the linemen that really helped out this South Division champion Baylor. Well, not South Division champs. Okay, there we go. Division champs, not Big 12.
No.
A lot of these guys are pretty much gone. And David Lemons decided to leave early. But right now, and I think 2 of their tackles also graduated at the same time. Though Ryan Chavez is helping out at the right tackle spot, they are really trying to, fix up that offensive line for another run.
Especially, you'll have Joshua Hyde for a few years, but he's only a freshman. He's kind of a gap at left tackle right now.
Yeah, crossing fingers.
It's an interesting play to have Brian Chavez as your right tackle and Hyde as your left, but
shit. But yeah, that's something that honestly, it's something that I probably should have looked into a little bit more, but who knows? Maybe switching around could help, especially since,
Well, it's not like Marcus Schwartz doesn't like to run either way.
Yeah.
Plus, you never know. He might be left-handed.
Yeah, we'll see. We shall see.
And finally, you're looking at another center. Ooh, Benjamin Simpson. But you're trying to reach way up there for them. Baylor's looking up to Minnesota for this 4-star center. And I'm guessing it doesn't look too good.
Yeah, that's a bit of a reach. Trying to go back to my hometown. Well, not necessarily hometown, but really back to Minnesota to at least grab what could be a potentially good center. Going to be expecting to fight up there. We'll see how Baylor commits towards this battle. So.
But it's always hard, like I said, to reach out of state. And then finally, we talked about Baylor's secondary. You have 2 corners, 2 4-star corners who Baylor's looking at, and a 4.5-star strong safety. Now, one of those corners, Sammy Schuler, is a Big 12 battle.
Yeah.
Both of them are Big 12 battles, but this one is Kansas State versus Texas Tech versus Baylor for a Texas guy. Yeah. Kansas State's a guy or a team who's been coming into Texas over and over again. So,
and this is a battle that Kansas State's putting a lot of their chips into already. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that they definitely see as a potential starter, and so it's very tough. And it's very tough for us because we kind of want this guy too, but we'll see how this goes in the end because Kansas State is definitely packing a punch for this guy.
Yeah, and it's another option. If you do end up landing Vincent Perkins, it makes the 4-star guy from Texas that you're fighting Oklahoma State for, it makes Sammy Schuler less of a priority.
Yeah.
Like a school like Texas Tech, who we won't talk about them for a little while, but that's their top guy. They also have Kofi Pope they're fighting for. And Sean Hodge got the Roadrunners on your tail.
This is a guy that Taylor's really coveting right now. This is a guy that that Baylor kind of has on target now that Powers is committed. And so this is definitely someone that the Bears are looking to right now.
Yeah, landing your top guy like that gives you a lot of flexibility. So it allows you to kind of look towards other elite recruits, guys like Hodge or Perkins or Schuler. So if they can pull one of them, it's going to be a nice boost. They can pull 2 of them. If you can pull 2 of these guys, say Hodge and Perkins or Hodge and Schuler, going to be a huge impact on your defense. And if you can pull all three, then that secondary for Baylor is going to be.
We'll just have to wait and see. Mm-hmm. We can only pull our strings so much, but then again, this is a Baylor team that just left the playoffs the moment they walked through that door. So they definitely want to get back into the ring sometime in the future. And necessary break. So
no, we don't need a break right here, but
yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting impact on Baylor's defense there. So we're going to see how that secondary plays out and continues to go. That's one of the unfortunate parts about operating in a basement here.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
But
yeah, Baylor's definitely going big on the secondary, and this is a team that's looking into reloading as soon as possible. So
especially when you have guys like Kyle Cunningham who may or may not be at Baylor after this year.
Yeah, so
the guys in his position declare it sometimes even suddenly, and it's not a guy you can really count on to be there when he's that highly talented.
Agreed. We don't know where Kyle's gonna go. If he wants to stay another year, by all means, I'm gonna be more than happy. So
if you have any predictions of those three players, which would you say go to Baylor?
Of those three players going to the Bears right now, I think there's a good chance that Sean Hodge will sign soon, probably, and Vincent Perkins is another. I think Vincent Perkins is the kind of player that Baylor's looking at right now, especially since he really fits their scheme. And so Bears we'll just have to wait and see. It's most likely that these two will sign soon. For Schuler, I think it's going to be more of an uphill battle, but we'll see where Baylor throws their weight around.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So now we're moving on. And the next one on them, the TCU Horned Frogs.
Horned Frogs. All right. So, yeah, we got a Horned Frogs team that, like Baylor and Oklahoma, signed a few players.
Yeah, not as much as either of those, but ended up with 6 guys.
Yeah.
That's at the time, last week, we were looking at getting 7, but 6 is still a very nice boost to this class. And it's a good starting point.
Definitely. And some of these guys look highly touted. I think the one thing that strikes out the most are these 2 linemen. I mean, names aside, these ones are actually pretty you can actually say these names.
Yeah, and I think they're awesome names for a defensive tackle. Yeah.
So we got a Hooker Jackson, probably has a really good right hook before sacking the QB, and Quan Shaw from Port Neches Groves. And these 2 guys definitely look like the kind of players that will really bolster a TCU defense in the future.
Yeah, what ended up happening was they're both kind of 2-gap guys. They can both eat up a couple blockers on a defense. And we were recruiting at a camp there, and we really went there to focus on Quan Shaw. He was our top guy this whole time, and we saw Hooker Jackson there. And at the time, Quan Shaw was a pretty heavy TCU lean, and they started talking. We ended up offering Jackson as well on the spot at that camp, and apparently they just kept talking, and they decided they wanted to come play together and lock down this defensive line. So it's going to be a lot of fun watching them play the next few years. Now, we do really have the defensive tackle depth where there's a good chance, especially if Adriel Sierra doesn't declare for the draft, that they both take a redshirt year, but I kind of expect that going in. So they're going to have that, and they're going to have a year to kind of grow together before they tear up this defense.
We'll see. Quan Shaw definitely looks like the kind of player that could almost have an immediate impact as well, too.
He's
like TCU definitely has the depth right now, and he's around some pretty good guys that will, no matter what, good guys to learn from as he gets ready for that starting position. And
Yeah, sorry about that.
yeah, you're good. You're good.
But I think, with Quan, I think he kind of still expects, I think, looking at it, to be that top guy. So he's going to go in and try and prove himself, and we'll really see how he does. So I'm excited to see how that plays out for him. But I think in a lot of places he'd come in and immediately start. So really interesting to see. Now we also have the 5-star back, Mateo Cates. I finally got a running back.
There you go.
After years of trying, missed out on Marshawn Miller, missed out on Solomon McLaughlin, and finally did not miss out. So that's maybe the guy I'm most excited about from this class.
There we go. He's found the running back. Mateo Cates.
Mm-hmm. And then,
Yeah, and whether it's good. And looking at the running back position as well, TCU is pretty much going to be ready for a while. They got Shamar Burrows, who's going to be there for at least one more season. Griffin McKenna, who could also start at running back, but also looks stunning as a receiver as well. And now they have Martin Gifford, who redshirted last season, who could also see some playing time in between. So TCU definitely has a few questions up the road. How do you think some of these will be answered?
We'll see. I told McKenna from the start that I'd give him a chance to play running back at some point. Right now he's our backup, so he's not getting a ton of carries in the game, but hopefully he'll see the field at least a few times, maybe not this season, but in 2 years from now when Burrows graduates, because Burrows hasn't looked like his old self. He's been excellent this year. And it's been really exciting to see. So a couple years down the road when we have Gifford, who's going to be a junior that year, we're going to have McKenna, who's going to be a junior, we could have some options. We could go different games depending on scheme. We can rotate them, and McKenna will always be an option at wide receiver like he's playing this year. And Cates will be pretty young at that point. When they're all seniors and Cates is a sophomore, might be when we see, say, Cates and Gifford rotating in there, and you have McKenna kind of takes permanently as wide receiver. But it depends on how he plays. It depends on how this offense runs. But
all right,
there's a lot of options looking at that position, especially when you bring more talented guys in. Hopefully Gifford doesn't transfer. I want him to play as much as he can, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. We shall see. TCU definitely looks like they're going to put a really good class together. They have a lot of young guys. And as far as helping build up this recruiting class, TCU is looking for the right weapons, the right players that'll fit their schemes. And right now, it looks like they're shooting pretty far for wide receivers at the moment. Not only with Malik Aboya, who's also being looked at by Baylor, but also Rodrigo American speed receiver, 4.5-star, and a Daquan Crockett, 4.5-star as well. So they're definitely aiming.
Yeah, there's a lot of options here, wide receiver, and we already have one of my favorite players in this class. It's a guy who can go up and catch over anyone, FT Grady, who's signed with us, another kind of target type guy. And he kind of fits the mold that Daquan Crockett fills and Malik Aboya fills. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think those are guys who right now, especially with Daquan Crockett at Texas, are their top guy. Like, they're being told that they're the future there. Fua at Baylor. Crockett's not hearing as much from SMU because they have, I believe, Devin Samuel is the guy who signed with SMU this year. So Texas is kind of pulling away, Crockett's leaning towards Texas there. I'll always accept a Fua if he wants to come in, but I think right now he's leaning towards Baylor. If I had a prediction, I think he ends up going to Baylor because I'm not quite sure there. Now, Merrickquin's interesting because he's not the same type. He's 5'9", I think 159. Or maybe 5'10", 159. He's a small dude, but he is speedy.
Probably has the speed too.
Yeah, he is a quick guy, kind of fills more of a slot receiver role, but It's going to be interesting to see where he wants to go because he's another guy who feels he can be a top guy. I think I'm going to continue to recruit him, and I hope I can eventually end up convincing him to come be a part of this wide receiver core that's really starting to put itself together. But I think Rice wants the same thing, and Rice also signed their top guy in the 5-star, the number one guy in Texas, DeAndre Clay. So it's going to be interesting to see who Miracle wants to play next to, but there's a lot of options for him right now.
Definitely. Definitely has their options as far as wide receiver goes. And looking at a few other battles as well, slip of words. They're also trying to at least bolster up the line so that their stud QB and Sam Milner can throw to these receivers most likely. And two interesting battles right here. And Antonio Logan, another battle with you and Rice, and then one that I noticed is Santiago Gomez, who you're going up against A&M with, and then a Tony Keating. How do you think TCU is going to go about this specific?
Well, the biggest surprise of last week was Santiago Gomez. We've been talking to him for 3 or 4 weeks now. We really thought he was on board, and turns out he had some family who went to Texas A&M who at the last second came up to talk to him, brought him to take a visit to the Aggies, and ended up kind of making him indecisive. Now, this is a guy I really like, someone who I really hope ends up being a frog, someone who I'm going to try to make a frog, and we'll have to see how it plays out. So I'm going to continue to recruit him. I think he's the number one offensive guard on our board right now. After him, I think it goes Logan. So we'd love both of them to play together. But Gomez is probably our top recruit behind the guy we'll talk about in a second. And then Keating has kind of fallen off our board. He's a guy who, again, Texas is starting to pull away from, a guy that Texas really wants to play next to Quintana, I believe is the name of that guard. Quintana. And they're really close friends. I think Keating and Quintana might end up playing together. But out of the offensive guard positions, if I'm making predictions, I think Gomez, the Aggies are tempting him, but I think he ends up a frog. And I'd like to think Logan does as well. But
right. Well said. Definitely interesting. Sorry, just hearing noises outside. Not sure what that is. Yeah, that's definitely something TCU's going to be fighting on from here on out, along with the wide receiver position. A lot of options to choose from, thankfully, and just because they're in these battles far up. So
yeah, there's a lot of different people we've been talking to, and excitingly, there's a lot of people who have listened. So a lot of different options there, and we're really excited to see who ends up joining the Carter Boys 2020.
Yeah. Is there any other specific players that you're personally interested in as well, that someone who's still on your board too?
Oh, yeah, our top guy right now. Number one recruit we're going for is well, I'm not saying number one because I say all of our recruits are number one, but a guy we really like, a guy who I think will bolster our defense a lot is Lardarius Pendleton, the Mike inside linebacker. He's signing between TCU and Texas Tech, and recently when I talked to him, he told me he was leaning TCU. I think that's what he's kind of publicly saying. We'll see how that plays out. I know Texas Tech has a lot of people they're looking into, and I think they're also competing for Evander Lawton, another inside linebacker. So maybe we can sway Pendleton to help our defense. We'll get a guy like Elliot McElmore in there talking to him, our current inside linebacker, or maybe if he wants to switch outside, we have a lot of guys there that'll try to sway his opinion. But
all right.
Hopefully we'll get him on campus. That's the guy we really want here, though.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. Sounds like you're really excited.
I'm very excited about this class. I love the guys we have coming in, and I really can't wait to see their impact on the field, especially with a team that lost their first 2 games. It's always fun seeing the new guys who still get excited, who still want to be a part of the program.
Agreed. Definitely agreeing with that. And looking at the rest of our board, TCU doesn't look like they're in any more heated battles besides wide receiver, guard, and of course the linebacker. Looking at their depth chart, they look pretty much set. Like the one theme so far is this is a very young team.
Mm-hmm.
Despite 3 linemen that are about to be seniors, TCU looks like they're going to be reloading with this next class.
Yeah, we're starting 3 seniors are on our entire roster: Mason Ryder, Usame Nixon, and John Kearns, who all have guys coming in except for Mason. Or he's a guy we'll try and replace through junior college, and then we only have 4 juniors, I believe. Or yeah, we have 4 seniors. Mana Tagada is also a senior, but we have a guy coming in. We also only have 4 juniors: Shamar Burrows, Adriel Sierra, and both of our safeties, Matthew Dyson and Christopher Malone. So out of our entire roster, we have 7 upperclassmen.
Yeah.
So next couple of years are going to be fun. Hopefully we don't have a lot of people leaving early, but even if we do, every time we have someone step in and fill in their place. So it's exciting to see.
Yeah. Sounds good. I think next up for us after TCU,
the Kansas State Wildcats.
The Wildcats.
They did not sign anybody, unfortunately for them.
Unfortunately, there's now a huge gap going from 16 to about 7 to about 5 recruits. Kansas State hasn't been able to pull up anyone yet, and this is a team that there's a lot of questions around. Kansas State is finally pulling at least some team together. Hav has been doing a good job at least rebuilding this team, and so right now this is a very important class for them because they could get some good players from for the Wildcats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sorry.
Of course, they do have Raheem Murrow, who will probably stick to the quarterback position for the next 2 years, including this year included.
Because he is the greatest. Like, I think everyone understands it. They have the greatest quarterback in right now.
Yeah.
It's a self-proclaimed greatest, but I think you'll be hard-pressed to find someone to argue with him over it.
Definitely. It's going to be very hard to argue with the guy about that. So he is indeed the greatest.
For sure. And then, so guys they need, though, let's see, since we can't really talk about their current recruits, let's look up and see who's really considering them. We have a 4-star wide receiver from Texas who they are head and shoulders above everyone on. Jermaine Jordan, who's going to come in. He probably won't get a chance to play with Morrell, unfortunately, but they still have other quarterbacks coming in behind him. They have Julius Minnow, who will actually be back for a year. So Julius Minnow is taking a redshirt year for one reason or another, probably to kind of learn behind Morrell, who was a better player, who came in and is going to play, but we haven't seen the last of Minnow. So for Minnow's senior season, he's going to need someone to throw to, and that very well could be Jermaine Jordan.
Agreed. Yeah. Looks like Kansas State's also got some pretty good recruits. Some pretty good players redshirting alongside Minnow. There's Brendan Scherer, who looks to probably be a linebacker.
Yeah, awesome linebacker, too. He's an athlete, so he projects to Mike linebacker, but he could also probably play outside linebacker, inside linebacker, or will linebacker, whatever they need him to do.
A lot of potential for this guy for sure.
Safety.
Yeah, this is a Kansas State team that could, definitely portray greatness. I'm gonna stop beating that dead horse, but but this is definitely a Kansas State team that is not the same one from 2-3 seasons ago. Not at all.
This reminds me of the Harvey Fagan Kansas State teams where you have Doherty, that outside linebacker, David Doherty, studs like that who make plays and upset Kansas, who really I know that was a 1-win team that year. Kansas was the only win they had, but they're still Kansas State. I remember playing Kansas State. I beat them by 1 score the year I went 11-1. or yeah, the year I went 11-3 ended up, but I barely beat Kansas State. Like their team throughout the years who has maybe not been a consistently winning program, but has put everyone on edge. Played in one of the greatest games ever against SMU. And we want to get back to that because last year Kansas State didn't have as much of that. And considering the fact that they're above TCU, they're above Baylor, they're above Oklahoma on the power rankings right now, and they're 3-0, this is not your old Kansas State.
Agreed. Speaking of, I think you just had an interview recently, and you're going to be facing this Kansas team. How do you feel about going up against the Wildcats, or at least how do you think this matchup can go?
I talked about that a bit in the interview. It could really go either way. As far as my team, I say we could see either side. I think we could see a great performance. We could see a young performance, something that people kind of struggle. And Kansas State isn't really a team with youth. They're kind of senior laden. They have depth at most positions, and they have an incredible pass defense, which you wouldn't always expect looking at them, but they've shut down their opponents. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how they play against a tougher opponent, not to call myself tougher, but compared to what they've played so far, they haven't had the greatest competition. So it's going to be interesting to see how they hold up, but I definitely think this is a game that could go either way.
Sounds good.
As far as recruits go, they're in for some battles. Like I said, they have Jermaine Jordan. They got PK Lovelace, who's a blocking tight end, but will probably project as another target for not Morrell, but Minnow when he's there. Yeah. They're pulling this guy from Kansas, and he's head and shoulders. He's full on Kansas State, and I expect him to commit in a couple weeks.
Yeah. PK Lovelace, also tight end from Kansas. Looks like he's going to be a Wildcat pretty soon. As Kansas State's been going pretty heavy on recruiting this guy, making sure that he stays in state as well. And this is someone that can easily fit their scheme pretty well, whether it's going to be next year or in a few years. This is someone that could be a really good start for the Wildcats. Looking at a few more games, or at least recruits, Aaron Coronado, a linebacker from Texas. This is a very
Coronado's a guard.
Huh?
Coronado's a guard.
Yeah. Shoot, my bad.
Yeah.
Did it say tackle?
Dead linebacker.
Oh. Okay, yeah. That's what guard. Coronado is a guard. And this is definitely a very interesting fight because we have Kansas State, who's from out of state. We have Tulsa from neighboring Oklahoma, and Rice, who's at home and trying to at least keep this guy in state. And so this is definitely
leaning towards Kansas State.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, Kansas State is doing an excellent job recruiting Texas. I kind of hate it, but they're doing, I think, more than most teams of kind of coming in, trying to pluck these players out, and people are listening.
One thing you definitely have to give the Wildcats is a lot of guts. They're really trying to reach out of states, not only from Texas, but also from Missouri, and also actually especially Florida. Scratch the Missouri part, Florida. One recruit that I have on my map is Cooper Ferris, 3.5-star center. They're trying to fight I think Washington State for this guy. Like both these teams are in Florida going for this guy.
Yeah. So I think Florida teams may right now be focusing on more, again, out of state or in-state guys, like 4.5-star guys. So they haven't turned to Ferris yet, but they might not get a chance to. Once you have Washington State and Kansas State jump on him, they might not listen to the Florida schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both of these guys would be incredible pieces to this Kansas State O-line. I think they end up getting Coronado. I think Rice might try to push for him, but I think he'll end up making the decision to stay or to head out state to go to Kansas State. Ferris, we'll see. I'd be concerned that an in-state school kind of jumps on him because we don't really know how hard these two schools have been recruiting him and if he really favors an in-state guy or an in-state school is just waiting for an offer while looking at these two, but we'll see. Both of those would provide a great line, especially with Ferris, who might be an instant starter. How are they at the center position? Now they have Muhammad McCarthy who will start next year.
And then I think finally for the secondary, Kansas State's in two separate battles. One in state with Kansas, Daniel O'Hara. That one I think is going to be going to Kansas, but we'll see. It could change at any points. But the real battle that I think right here is Sammy Schuler. And I know we discussed him recently. The one thing I find interesting about this battle is that this is actually Kansas State's star player.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like you'd think that they'd aim higher, but this is someone that they really want. Like this is the guy that said they've told is we really think he'll be the person that makes the team, or at least the defense. They really want this guy, and right now like they're fighting tooth and nail to bring this guy to Manhattan.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, they really are. I will say it's interesting that he's also listening to Texas Tech still. I think Ace is having pleasure trying to mess with all of Kansas's star recruits. We'll talk more about the Bellows competition in a second. But I think Sammy Schuler is a guy that it's not expected when you're a guy like Schuler, a 4-star who's a great player. But to have someone single you out and say, we think you're the next great thing. We have the greatest on our team already. We think you can be the greatest on defense. We think you can be our star. We want you to come here. And for someone to come that far out of state for you, I don't see any way he can turn it down.
Yeah.
So I think he ends up with Kansas State. I think he's leaning there right now, and I think he'll continue to lean there. And I think he'll put his name on there. Unfortunately, Baylor and Texas Tech.
Yeah, honestly, I think it'd be a real shame if this guy didn't go to Kansas State, really, because like this is, they're pouring all their effort into this guy, like giving them the whole tour of the campus, meeting the coaches, the player, even some legends as well. I know there's a few Kansas State players that made it to the NFL.
Yeah, I heard David Doherty's down there. We were talking about him earlier. I think Harvey Fagan may have come to visit him. I can't really, off the top of my head, name any cornerbacks from Kansas State.
Yeah.
But
there's at least a few famous fullbacks that went to Kansas State.
Oh, yeah, Dylan Stewart.
Yeah,
Dylan Stewart out there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I think this kind of wraps it up for Kansas State. Oh, nope. We do have a punter battle.
We do have a punter, but I think he's an Aggie.
Yeah.
It's Texas A&M versus Kansas State out of Texas, Grand Parish. But I think he goes to Aggie. I don't think Kansas State's going to push too much. I think they have better battles to look into.
Fair enough. I think that kind of wraps it up for Kansas State. They're still fighting for some of these recruits, but I think their class, we'll see. Like there's a few battles, but I think in the end, if Coach Half pulls it off right, he'll bring in a good class to complement the rebuild he's going through. So we'll see. I think that takes us up to Kansas.
Kansas. All right, we're halfway there. Only an hour and 8 minutes in. So
I'll be right back. But if you want, you can start us off.
Okay, yeah. I was talking about the Jayhawks, I guess.
Yeah.
So the Jayhawks so far have only signed one recruit, but it was an inside linebacker, Adrian Henderson from River Road and Amarillo, Texas. He is, I might say, an instant starter for them. Not sure. I'll take a look at their depth chart right here to see how they're doing at the inside linebacker position, but he's a guy, he's only a 3.5 star, but when you look at the talent level, like their current level going in, you have Powers up here in Texas, easily the best linebacker. He's only a couple notches down. Now, Powers has the size and athleticism to pass him up for sure. Like, he's not Garrett Powers, but he's going to come in and make a similar kind of impact his first year. He might kind of top out earlier. He's reaching the limits of his physical build, so you can see where his kind of athleticism fall. He doesn't necessarily have the build to put on a ton of weight and get much better, but he's a damn good linebacker right now. And he's going to be a guy that Kansas kind of needs because right now their inside linebacker is athlete Cameron Reeves. They also have Spencer Bean, who's a junior Mike linebacker, and a few other ones. It looks like they might end up moving to currently they play 4-3, but they have a Will linebacker coming up, Ray Alacarn, and as far as red shirts go, they don't have any inside linebackers currently redshirting. Now, a few things though with their linebacker core. Let's see.
I'm back. So
Here. Yeah, they might actually, as far as defensive tackles go, they might be looking more to recruit to a 4-3. I was saying a 3-4 rather than a 4-3 because they have this linebacker coming in here.
I think, it's definitely going to be a big change, at least for Kansas. I'll take it for now. And they definitely have a few players ready for that. And granted, they do have one gap, but then again, I really think the scheme change for them next season shouldn't be a problem. But
it's interesting to see. But with the graduation of Cam Reeves, it's going to be interesting to see for these Jayhawks here.
Yeah, and one notable battle. I don't know if you discussed it yet, but
I haven't talked about battles yet. Let's go into the Kansas battles.
I think we were talking about linebackers, and I think one of the linebackers that Kansas is really looking at closely is Evander Lawton from Texas, and they're actually fighting the Texas Tech Raiders for this guy at the moment. So,
that's a good sign that they are moving towards a 3-4 because he is a primary will guy. He's a 4.5 star out of Texas, and Kansas is leading on him, I believe. Kansas is doing a number to try and get this guy, trying to pry him from the Red Raiders, and he's listening.
Yeah, this is a very close battle. Both teams are within 5 points, and we're gonna ignore the rest of the offers from this guy because these are pretty much the two that are going in.
Yeah, there's another team who's offered him, but he's not considering them. They're already out of the competition, so.
Okay, cool.
So.
All good.
Oh.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so
that is Evander Lawton. I'm also looking at a few.
Yeah, if you look up, they have they're in a pretty big battle for Armani Bello. Now, we were talking about Texas Tech trying to cause trouble for Kansas Stars. Armani Bello he knows how to be a star. He came out as the number 1 offensive tackle in the state of Texas, top 5 in the country, I believe. I can look up here. And he is a stud. He's a guy who's going to come in. He may redshirt a year, but he doesn't have to. And he's going to be a star left tackle. He's going to be the best player for him. He's a run blocking type. That's his favorite, but he'll play the left tackle position. And he's favoring Kansas, and almost smartly so, because like I said, that's their star. That's the guy that they've put everything into. Now, there's a good chance he's considered by the end of this the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, except for maybe Mareko Meole from Tennessee. But one of those two guys is it. So Kansas is definitely reaching in for a top guy, but Texas Tech is a bit behind. I think he's listening to Kansas, but we'll see how he does against Texas, or how Texas Tech kind of competes there. But if I had to make a decision, I'm choosing Kansas. I think he ends up with the Jayhawks right now. Kind of leaves Texas Tech behind.
Just have to wait and see with that. This is a Kansas team that really needs to go big on their offensive line, which is featuring 4 seniors. So Armani Bello could really start, from the get-go.
Yeah, it really could, which is going to be interesting to see. Yeah, and he probably should start. He's that talented of a guy.
Yeah. I think this is a guy that Kansas is going to have to start no matter what, considering at least how veteran their line is right now. So.
Yeah, because been good. He had been awesome, or he's not great anymore, but he had been good. Who's a senior? His backup's a senior. Cameron Schreiber is a senior. Their center, at least, is not a senior. Judy Murphy's a senior. Walt McHugh is a senior.
And, if they really want to protect Christian Graham, who's only a freshman, who's their quarterback right now as a freshman, he's going to need guys like Armani Bello to be
And they
blocked.
don't have even redshirting either. So
Yeah,
Bellows is a huge need for them, and I think they end up getting it.
yeah. Currently looking through, they are looking at another guard at the moment, a 3.5-star from South Carolina, Richard Foote. So
It's another
next,
guy they need to bring in who,
yeah,
unfortunately for him, might be like he's not Bello, and he could be a starter as a freshman. They'll have
this is going to be a
Francisco.
very young squad next year
Yeah,
for Kansas.
I think they'll have a 2-star guy, Francisco Kemp, who's a walk-on, not necessarily the best guy in the bunch, and then Jeremy Harden, who's a 3-star, and those are going to be their guards.
Yeah.
Everyone else is graduating. This is a tough position for Kansas to be in. Um, but yeah, they'll also have Stephen Dorsey. He's only a junior, so he'll be here around next year as their backup, or as their starting left guard, probably.
Yeah. Things are not going to be the same in Kansas anymore. There's that to say.
Yeah, but
Have to.
yeah,
Yeah.
they'll still have Christian Graham though. They won't have Malcolm Davis. They'll have some receivers. They'll have Chris Burgos there. They'll probably have to keep Jamie Bautista. If Noah Hills declares, then Jamie Bautista will be their starting tight end. If Noah doesn't declare, or if Noah Hills doesn't declare, then he could be their second string wide receiver. Like that's the big difference here.
Mm-hmm.
Like for Kansas, and they're not really super in on a wide receiver right now. So there's a lot of pieces for Kansas to fill, and some other battles they're in. Like I said, Lawton is someone they really need. Not as much as they need on the offensive side. They're also in a battle for Daniel O'Hara. Sorry, small tech. O'Hara. We talked about him, and I think we project him to Kansas because he'll fit into that secondary really well, alongside Bradley Spurlock, who will be gone by the time O'Hara gets to play. But Omari House, Javier Blunt, just freshmen now. So it's interesting Kansas isn't recruiting as much on the offensive line, though, as they maybe should.
All right. I don't know. I think this kind of wraps it up for Kansas. What do you think? Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's also a punt returner who they're probably recruiting to be a wide receiver. So out of Texas, Austin McKenzie. And they're falling behind against Rice, and I think Rice pulls them out. Another athlete, a man guy, another battle against Texas Tech, Leon Travis. I think since they take Bellows, Texas Tech turns to Travis and says, we can't keep people take the state. We have to protect the state, build the wall. And Leon Travis, we need you. And he ends up at Tech.
All right.
But it's going to be interesting to see.
I think next team that we have on the list is West Virginia. Take me home.
You ready for this?
Oh, gosh.
Country road, take me home to the place I belong.
West Virginia, Mama, take me home. Country road. I think I butchered it.
Yeah, we always do, but it was even worse last week. So we're improving each week.
Yeah.
We get better at this. The West Virginia Mountaineers, number 4 on the power rankings.
And just so the West Virginia coach knows, that'll be the only time I plan on singing it. So, all right, let's go.
All right.
All right.
So who do we got there for them? We got 4 commitments. Not bad for the West Virginia Mountaineers. We got star of their – I don't know if he's a star, but the stud of their class. I think he is their star. Wide receiver Corey Easley, a guy who unfortunately was born a couple years too late to play with Muhammad Foster.
Unfortunately
for him, but he'll get to forge his own path there, and I think he's excited to be part of this kind of up-tempo offense, the scramble run and gun that it seems like West Virginia always runs. Seems always like a fun offense to watch. They're must-see TV now, and I'm sure they will be in the future. He follows in the footsteps of at least J.C. Weldon, So,
Yeah.
we'll see if he's J.C. Weldon's around after next year.
Yeah. Let's see if both Muhammad Foster and Weldon are around after next year.
Now, does West Virginia already have their successor to Foster? Let's see if he's redshirting.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Ooh.
They have a couple 3-star guys, but they're the same year as him, so they'll be gone. Or if he declares, they'll be around. Is there a quarterback they're big on recruiting? And there is George Story, a 4-star from Pennsylvania. He's a scrambler. I think most of the teams already in Pennsylvania. Penn State definitely has both their quarterbacks. It probably does. I'm not quite sure on theirs. And then Temple looks like they don't need him. So they're full up on quarterbacks, which leads West Virginia and Army fighting for this guy. And another scrambler in good West Virginia fashion.
Agreed. And I think this guy's definitely going to be in the range, whether he's going to be starting as freshman or redshirt freshman. This guy is definitely going to be West Virginia's future, as we know it. So
yeah, I'm sure he would love a year to redshirt here, if only because that means he gets to hopefully spend a year learning from Muhammad Foster, one of the best scramblers we've seen come through the Big 12, like an absolute stud. And he knows he probably won't be Foster, but he could be a great player in his own right. And that's why I think he's going to end up at West Virginia. I think he kind of fills in that role. I think Smickens knows where to get his quarterbacks from, and they'll reach in there and grab him, pull him away from the Army Black Knights. And especially when you're sitting in their class and you're West Virginia and you can say, hey, look, this is the dude you'll be throwing to. Point to Corey Easley, this speedster who, let's be honest, he has always wanted to go to West Virginia. He's from Morgantown. He went to University High School. That's where he's always wanted to be, and
he's going.
He's going. I think when you can say, hey, there's this guy here, you're going to have a target the entire time you're there. You won't lack for receivers. Then that's what you need.
Yeah, this is definitely a West Virginia team that's slowly in the making. Yeah, they do bring in some depth for sure. And then Aiden Nobles, also from West Virginia, zone cornerback who could be a starter in the near future for the Mountaineers. Taking a look, could potentially be a starter in the near future alongside Lamont Carson, who's currently there right now as a redshirt freshman. So, West Virginia is definitely bringing in
some depth players. In a couple years, we'll see a guy like Joshua Spiller starting for them, but he's a guy they don't need to start immediately. Bronson Stinson, they're solid at strong safety. I believe. Taking a look right now. They have a couple guys. They really aren't. They have someone redshirting.
Yeah, they do have
real small, but 2 years from now, he's going to be a starter. That's something. He'll be a starter as a redshirt freshman. So that's a big point for West Virginia. I think that's how they recruited him. Told him that you come in and you'll be the starter. Now, another interesting thing is West Virginia. It looks like they're also going to get their running back. So they're pulling in these triplets. The running back's not from Virginia or Pennsylvania, though. He's actually from Texas and kind of got overlooked. I think he feels a little slighted by some Texas schools because no one's really said much to him.
Yes.
Right, Madison, he's a 4-star, and West Virginia kind of reached out to him, said he wants you to come here, and they're the only school he's listening to.
Yes. I'm kidding. But yeah, this is definitely a guy who's, even though he's kind of not getting the same, I guess, coverage from other Texas schools, whether they're looking at some of the higher ranked ones. We had Solomon McLaughlin, Simeon Wells last year, and Mateo Cates this year. This is a guy that could at least still stay in the Big 12 and, visit home if he really needs to. So
yeah, but it looks like he's kind of getting sucked into the hype. So we're going to see how the triplets of Story, Madison, and easily will do all three together.
That's something.
That is something, and they'll be together probably 4 years because like starters for 4 years. Um, Especially if they all take a redshirt year, and then say who's their current running back, Muhammad Mustafa. Yeah, he'll graduate after a year, and then I think that's when you bring in Bryce Madison. Yeah, this guy.
Like this is going to be a repeat. You have Foster, Mustafa, and Weldon right now, and West Virginia is looking to at least try to replicate that. So,
yep,
kind of funny to see that.
Yeah. Well, interesting enough, they didn't recruit Weldon. Weldon transferred there.
Oh,
after originally going,
that is true.
Yeah, after originally going to Marshall, and then finally their last real battle right now. I think they're waiting to kind of see where the chips fall with their current recruits. Then they'll after they recruiting, Darren Miner. He's a tight end from Pennsylvania, but it looks like Pitt wants him, and it's going to be hard to pull him out of there, especially when you're still trying to pull George Story from Pennsylvania, pull Bryce Madison from Texas. So when you're going out of state a lot, there's some battles you have to give up, and when you're going against other schools from the same state, I think that might be one where they have to cut bait. So I think he ends up going to Pitt. So after that, though, they're not really recruiting much, and there's still some positions where, well, they're just going to have a lot more weeks of recruiting to see what they do because I think they'll get these commitments soon. So some positions I'll need to look at, or not defensive line, but linebackers, quarterbacks, a lot of defensive guys, kind of depth along there, and then offensive linemen. That's where I think they're going to go. They're going to get offensive linemen on like 3-star and 3.5-star offensive linemen as many as they can, and then corners.
Looking at least some of their potential battles, they do have. Oh wait, no, that's Western Michigan. Never mind. They are in a battle with Virginia Tech for Nasir Eubanks. I don't know if you mentioned it, but this is a guy from Virginia who could probably join alongside this strong safety that they have committed. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. But like we've mentioned time and time again, Nasir Eubanks is from Virginia, and Virginia Tech's recruiting him. So, but it is a border state. You're not too far from home. His mom can still drive him and see him. So it's going to be interesting to see if West Virginia can stay in that battle.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this this recruiting class pulls together for West Virginia. So,
and you can say, "Take me home, country roads."
Gosh, yeah. I do not plan on singing that.
All right. Oh yeah. We did well. We did well.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Okay. But I think moving on from West Virginia right now, who do we have next? Is it Oklahoma State or Texas Tech?
I believe it's Oklahoma State. Yeah, number 3 in the Big 12, the Oklahoma State.
And this is another team like Kansas State. They don't have any commitments yet, but they're also in some pretty big battles, or at least they're almost there, essentially. So let's take a deeper look into what could be the Oklahoma State recruiting class.
Yeah. So, yeah, they haven't had anyone committed, but they missed out on, like, the entire state of Oklahoma so far because they all decided to go to the Sooners.
I know they are in a battle with Oklahoma, and they're actually in a battle with me right now for a cornerback. We'll see how that goes.
So right now, the first battle, maybe their most important. Well, they're trying to reach into Texas for Ryan Red, defensive end. They're fighting Texas A&M for him, so that's always going to be tough to pull out. Even though Texas A&M is in a few different battles, I think they're fighting for Lamont Crawford, the defensive end from another one from Texas, but I think that's Purdue's star player. So might choose to fight that more, and Oklahoma State can sneak up and say, we value you more, and steal them away.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm not quite sure. I think that's a guy that Oklahoma State needs, considering they don't really have many other big recruits right now. They have Jeremiah Holmes and Brian Suarez, who are going to be 2 other battles. But I think without any signed Ryan Red, everyone they're in a battle for has to be a priority.
Yeah. So I'm taking a look at Oklahoma State's depth chart right now, and unfortunately, it's the text is white, and after the website change, it's very hard to see. So it's just
Yeah, you're
definitely
highlighting.
yeah, like you need to highlight it all. Um, Looking at their current depth chart right now, they pretty much have their next quarterback in line after Brenner. It's going to be Ian Baldwin. I think you mentioned him. I think they are looking at a running back, or at least they have a running back. Jamal Boyd has a current red shirt, so they have a few players right now, especially at wide receiver.
Yeah,
They have Jeremy Bridges right now.
Oklahoma State has solid depth at a lot of places. Samuel Barfield.
Yeah.
They had wasn't that top 5 recruiting class last year? Looking back,
it's either number 5 or number 2.
they had an excellent class. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of depth they can build on from last year. It would have been nice for them to be able to go out and get a star, but didn't end up happening.
Who is their star?
No, like a top guy. I think their star player is that's what I was looking up. I'm pretty sure it's Suarez, who is a 4.5 star outside linebacker. He's outside of Garrett Powers. He's probably the second best linebacker in the state, and in state of Texas, and they're head and shoulders above people. So in the next couple weeks, he'll commit there.
Yeah, this is definitely a guy. Suarez.
He was their player
that's going to start for the Cowboys. Their right outside linebacker, Jamel Ingram, is a 3-star from Mesquite, Texas, but he hasn't really been playing to at least what the Cowboys expect. I think Suarez might be able to at least could potentially start over this guy. So
yeah, and they also have. I mean, you can't not talk about Trevor Orlando, who's going to be like having Trevor Orlando, who was another 4.5 star. Very similar players coming out. And Suarez across next to each other, at least for a year, will be a lot of fun to see. That is, if Orlando's here after this year, and you always have to worry about early declarations.
Of course.
And then, so unfortunately, I don't see them getting Ryan Red. I think, say, Jeremiah Holmes, the inside linebacker, is another position they need because they have a senior graduating. Aiden Connor is only a junior, but he'll be gone next year, right when Jeremiah Holmes can come in. So I'd like to say that they get Holmes, they put him alongside Amari Bradford, and they have a nice 3-4. You can't let all of the in-state schools go to Oklahoma. So that's one, I think, a battle I think they're very happy to win. I think it's one that they will go on trying to defend their turf. But like I said, I think that costs them a guy out of Texas. I think it costs them Ryan Red. I think it costs them Vincent Perkins, who goes to Baylor. But that doesn't mean Oklahoma State's not pulling a good class relative to what they pulled last year to help build on that and have a good team coming up. 2 great linebackers, which is something they didn't necessarily get last time. What do you think? All right, then. All right, he moved away for a second. That's fine. So, yeah, Oklahoma State, I was looking at the spreadsheet, not at his himself. So, Oklahoma State, they have a lot of options. I think they need to get some kind of depth. I think, unfortunately for them, a lot of the depth in Oklahoma kind of got sucked up. But the toughest battle, though, is going to be securing Holmes because right now they have a lead on him, I believe. I'm going to go check that out. But Oklahoma doesn't really have many more players they need to recruit is the problem. So Oklahoma is probably going to focus a lot on Holmes. Actually, you might even be leaning that way, but I'm holding on for Panther. Yeah, they are leading that way. That's about a toss-up right now, but I like Panthers' chances. bringing him to the Cowboys. I know Ted's not going to agree with me. I think he's going to put a ton into him, but it's going to be interesting to see which way he goes. I think he's going to be the key that determines. I think if he decides to go to the Sooners, there are other recruits will follow him that way, which some have already decided to. But if he goes to Oklahoma State, I think the Cowboys will take a couple more guys with him. So it seems like Tuscan's off doing something, may have had a phone call, I heard something ring. So now we're going to jump up to number 2 in our power rankings here. We have, let's see, the number 2 team in the conference, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Now, it always seems on these podcasts, we end up talking a lot about Texas Tech before we even get to them, and that's kind of what happened this time. So looking at who they signed, they got one player, but it is one player they really, really, really wanted. Charlie Becker from Flantonia, Texas. He is probably the second best center in the country, second best recruit in the state of Texas, top 5 recruit nationally, and an absolute stud. He is a guy who is going to spend 3 years, maybe 2, blocking for Solomon McLaughlin. Going to open up some gaps for him and is a great option, I think. So they're really beefing up the line to prepare for McLaughlin because that's where they put all their money in. That's where they made their bets, and they're going to do everything that they can to back him up there. So there's that. Now, as far as battles go, I believe they're also still looking on the offensive line. You have some wide receiver battles. Their biggest one right now is for Armani Bello. We talked about that in regards to Kansas. But from the Tech side, he's another run blocker. Like, that's what he's best at. You put him on a line with Charlie Becker. You have Armani Bello. I don't think they're fighting for any guards right now, but you have those two, and they're going to open up some big holes for people, like especially Solomon McLaughlin. They're trying to set some records with him, it looks like, trying to set him up in the best possible offensive line and give him as many years as he can of excellent blocking, trying to turn him into maybe the next Sterling Brown or Trace the Ace from the Big 12. So it's going to be exciting to see. They don't have the best offensive line right now. They have Russell Richards, who's a freshman run blocker. They do have a senior, Carter Brantley, at guard, but right behind him for next year, they have another run blocker, Ed Whipple. They have, like I said, they'll have Charlie Becker at center. They have a pass blocker, Walter Shannon, at their other guard. He's only a sophomore, so he'll be here. And then they have, like I said, Ethan Whipple. And then their right tackle, they're looking to bring Bellows in because they need some depth there. Now it's going to be interesting to see if Tech kind of spreads themselves too thin because they're also fighting for a wide receiver from Texas, but that shouldn't be as hard for them, Laredo Luiga. And he's a guy who kind of wants to leave the state or at least leave the area he's in because he's considering Texas Tech, Penn State, and Southern Miss. But again, from in-state guys, I have to go with Texas Tech as the one he stays with and the place he goes. So I like the Red Raiders' chances there. On top of that, they have defensive tackle Vincent Schultz, who is the third best defensive tackle in the state. Sorry, it's kind of bragging, but probably a third. He's still another 5-star guy. This is a position that the state of Texas was super deep in. They had 3 5-star guys there, and Vincent Schultz actually is a different kind of build than the other 2, than Hooker Jackson or Quan Shaw. He's more of a pass rusher type. He's going to line up in the gap between, say, the center and the guard, or maybe even the guard and the tackle, and get upfield, bust up the play, and get to the quarterback. He's fighting rights for him, and right now Texas Tech leads that battle, and it's going to be interesting to see that if he can get him. If he keeps trying to get Bellows, it's going to be tough. Get both. Yeah. You back here?
Yeah, sorry about that. Family called, and everything's fine. Just you need to take a few minutes to answer. So
now you're fine. We're talking about the Red Raiders right now. Just got on.
All right.
Yeah.
Shoot.
So we talked about Charlie Becker. And they're trying to build a run blocking offensive line with him and Armani Bello.
Mhm.
Kind of went over that. On the defensive line, they're going for Vincent Schultz, the big 5-star defensive tackle.
They got some pretty big battles coming up for Tech. Like that's
a lot of real top guys considering him right now.
Yeah, like that's a lot of guys up there. They're picking some very big fights, and they could potentially win these fights too. Like Texas Tech is like, if we're talking about gambling, they're putting all their chips on, Armani Bello and Becker for this class.
Yeah. So, but if they get Armani Bello to build on that offensive line, watch out for McLaughlin. Is what I was saying.
Yeah,
that's going to be a scary offense. And Shapiro's not the greatest quarterback, but he's getting. Of course, he's not Morrell, but he's getting older, getting better every year, especially getting a running back to play alongside.
Yeah, I think now that McLaughlin's in the offense, Shapiro's role probably changed a little bit because he's not going to be their main runner. He is a scrambler, but again, I think this is definitely a scheme that whatever they're using, this is a scheme that that he was built for. Texas Tech was looking into getting this run game going, and now that they have McLaughlin, now they have a scrambling quarterback and a center to guard both of these players. This is going to be a crazy offense for Tech.
Yeah. And then, like I said, on the defensive side, they're putting all their chips in. They have 5 different defensive players, 4-star or better. They have, like I said, Vincent Schultz, the 5-star defensive tackle they're going to have to fight Riceoff for. They have Evander Lawton, the 4.5-star inside linebacker, and then Ladarius Pendleton, the other 4.5-star inside linebacker. Which of those guys do you think goes to Tech?
Sorry, I was loading up their depth chart right now. We have the inside linebacker. We have Bello. Now we have 2 inside linebackers, and then I feel like I'm missing someone. Schuler. So we have 4. Is there any Kofi Pope? So 5.
Yeah, Kofi Pope too.
Yeah.
And then they're also considering an athlete who's a man coverage guy, Leon Travis. So 6 defensive players. Now, on the off chance they get 1, they get 2, that's a wave, If you're starting to build a defense and you see the other guys going there, it might start bringing a lot of them to the Red Raiders, or they spread themselves a little too thin. None of the guys feels all the love, and they can go the other way. But
it's going to be interesting because I think as far as the cornerbacks go, I think they're getting their feet wet. I don't know what they're trying to do there because I know that Sammy Schuler at least has been – they heard from Kansas State and Baylor for a bit, so just go and see from there. But Texas Tech is also very prevalent to at least jumping into battles immediately. Like, you don't expect it.
Yeah, they'll come in and they'll compete with anyone, which is great trait for Ace Wolf there.
Yeah.
So, but
guns up and shooting.
Yeah, I think a guy like Sammy Schuler, he's a wildcat.
He's gonna be a wildcat, I think.
I think he's gonna spurn the Raiders, and I think the Red Raiders realize that. We'll see if they continue to go for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's gonna be a wildcat. I don't think he's worth to Texas Tech as much as he is to Kansas State. And I think Kansas State's going to show him that.
Yeah.
I think that's why I'll make his decision. But Kofi Pope, now that's a different story. He's a guy that Texas Tech could put a lot into and grab out of Texas. You also have
Leon Travis.
Travis, who's probably a coverage or a secondary guy, you think.
Yeah. I think Travis chooses the Red Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure how they see him fit their scheme, but I think it's a possible chance. And I'm currently 50-50 on whether they pick up on Lawton or not. I think that's going to be interesting to see.
Interesting that 3 of their battles are with Kansas. They're all in Texas.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some kind of beef going on between those two players, like two coaches, really, because I know they were at the top for a bit. Texas Tech, they
Yeah.
did play the Big 12 championship 2 seasons ago, so maybe this is just.
Yeah. So if I'm going to make a bet here, I'll say I think they go 2 for 3 on their battles with Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
I think they take Lawton and Travis. I hope they lose Pendleton. I think if they put enough into Lawton to take him, that Pendleton will realize that he's not necessarily their guy at inside linebacker, that they're kind of more of a fan of Lawton there, and he'll end up turning to TCU. And then,
of course, you have some interest right there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not biased or anything here. And then finally,
yeah,
I'm not sure on Vincent Schultz. I can go either way, but look at how many battles we've talked about with Rice. Like, they're another school who's going big into a lot of places, and we'll see how it does for them. But I can see that going either way. I know Texas Tech leads right now. I know they're going to try tooth and nail to get that guy because Vincent Schultz could really be a star, but I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see. If I make the prediction right now, I'll say he's a Red Raider.
All right. That's a bold statement. No, I mean, it's not a bold statement, but it's just, it could happen.
Yeah, it's something that could happen. So it's going to be exciting to see.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
It depends on how they'll throw. It's going to depend on how Texas Tech throws around their points, for sure.
Yeah, it's around who they talk to the most, who they make feel special, who they get on board, get excited about the program. There's a lot to be excited about, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I think the defensive guys feel the same thing.
Yeah, McLaughlin's definitely going to be their kind of guy for seasons to come. Whether he stays as a senior or leaves as a junior, this is a guy that you want to look at. So
the only freshman, he's second in the Big 12 in rushing behind, I want to say, Maurice White.
Oh, Maurice White. Okay.
Yeah, I think Maurice White's number one, or might actually be Simeon Wells. But those three are the top three.
Okay.
Or Shamar Burrows might have more yards than – I'm not quite sure. I was looking at the stats the other day. It's pretty close to the top because there's only been 3 games played.
Cool.
So we'll see some more separation, especially in yards per carry as the season goes on.
All right. And I think last but not least, final
team. Not least, the number 1 on the Big 12 power rankings.
The Texas Longhorns taking back the top.
Texas. Been a few years. Yeah, the Longhorns are back. It is. We haven't been able to see that.
Great recruiting class right now.
Yeah, you can't say that about their class, but
I'm joking. But
well, they do have one commitment, which is more than some people can say. They tried to get Becker, but he clearly wanted to block for
McLaughlin.
Yeah. So that happened, but they have an offensive tackle to go alongside or go opposite Bobby Drake in a couple years. He'll probably redshirt because they have Dominique Friedman there. They have a couple sophomores who will play, and then after they graduate 2 years from now, he'll still be able to play by Bobby Drake, who's only a freshman. And then, so I keep saying I'm not going to try and pronounce these names, but I am not going to try and pronounce this. It looks like the most recent Pokemon region, Aola. I'm not going to do
Aloha Lustino or Ustino.
Yeah. There's some interesting names around Texas. They have a big Pacific Islander influence with some of these big guys. So he's going to be a solid guy in a few years, a pass blocker. Now, as far as Texas recruits go, as far as battles they're in, we've mentioned a few of them earlier because it's kind of hard not to, as we talk about the rest of the Big 12.
Right.
First one is the target for Kyler Tackett, Daquan Crockett.
Daquan Crockett. Yeah, that's right. Wide receiver Daquan Crockett. three-way battle really between Texas, TCU, and SMU. And I think right now he looks like he's leaning towards Longhorns at the moment. So
I think that's right.
yeah, so this is
Leaning towards him slightly. He's still looking at the other ones. I think he kind of wants to play with maybe Marcus Burden or Sam Milner, but I think he's going to end up a Longhorn. I think Azul really wants him there. He's a big guy too. I think he's 6'4".
Yeah. And who wouldn't want to play for Texas either way? Like it's the
best team in the conference right now.
Yeah, it's the state school, and they have a great reputation, a great history. They have a national championship, and who wouldn't want to be a part of that kind of program?
Exactly, it is a high prestige program, has a lot of excitement around the team, and a very exciting player. I'm gonna look up Crockett, and especially when you have a guy like they're considering TCU and SMU, who have both already signed wide receivers, much less are recruiting them. But interesting thing could be of note, though, DeQuan Crockett goes to Flower Bluff High School in Corpus Christi, Texas. Now, another noted alumni of Flower Bluff High School in Corpus Christi, Texas is none other than Big 12's number 2 all-time passer in both passing yards, touchdowns, number 1 in interceptions, the great Nathan Burden. So I think that's another reason why he's kind of considering TCU. They've gotten to follow Burden's career as he played there for 4 years and then still has not been signed by an NFL team. He's a big guy. He's probably the best recruit that Flower Bluff has had in years.
Probably. Fun fact, my cousin actually graduated from Flower Bluff High School, but he never played college football. So
never played college. He went D1 in something other than sports.
Oh, yes. But that's a different story.
Yeah.
Anyways.
They're also looking for more targets with Tackett. You have Francesco Sewell, who they're fighting New Mexico for. I'm going to give him to Texas. He's a receiving tight end who I think he chooses to be a Longhorn.
Yeah.
I think he joins that, Tyler Tackett's team. We keep going back to everyone's quarterback, but that's really what brings people in. That's kind of a recruiter there. And not only do they have that, they also have Lucas Beckwith, who's only a freshman, and he's a 4.5-star guy. Go ahead.
It's all good. I thought this was a very interesting decision for Texas, at least last season when JUCOs came around. They did have Beckwith they did have Beckwith going for a redshirt, but they went for Tackett specifically, and maybe he fits the scheme. Maybe he fits the scheme that Azul wants, and currently he's really showing some promise for the Longhorns.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he's going to be a terror to deal with for the next 3 years. Or, again, maybe 2. But, he's going to have people to throw to. Abdul Casey is going to finally graduate. He was – back when he was a freshman or coming out of high school, he was the only 4.5-star recruit in the entire state of Texas. There were 5 5-star recruits. Abdul Casey is the only 4.5-star, and then I think 6 or 7 4-star recruits. Yeah, back when you had Raheem, Daquan Darcy, Tom Wyman, Stephen Maloney, who's also a redshirt senior there, and then Cameron Riley. That's most of it. I'm trying to go through memory the top recruits in Texas that year.
There's a lot of high-class redshirt seniors on this Longhorn team, some that you even mentioned right now. So
it's interesting that they're not redshirting their incoming freshman wide receiver. What's his name? Sean Lyle.
Well,
4.5-star, but they apparently wanted to give him on the field because they don't really have the depth there.
Yeah, considering their current wide receiver depth, I think it was necessary for him to at least not necessarily burn the red shirt, but just give this guy a chance. Like, yeah, he's a freshman, but he's not going to be their number one.
Number one guy.
their
He'll
first
get to grow and he'll get to be on the field.
Yeah.
And then say you also have, I think, like I said, they're going to add Sewell. I think they're in a defensive end battle for Noel Littlejohn. I think it's hard for most of these guys to turn down Texas, especially when that is really their only remaining battle right now is Littlejohn. I think I don't want to predict everyone, or the Longhorns are getting everybody. But I think everybody. Longhorns are getting everybody except Charlie Becker. Where's the other one? Quintana's too. Sorry.
Quintana. So, like, they're definitely going big on run blocking, at least trying to bolster up that offensive line. Their current offensive line right now is 3.5-star potential. They've got Brian Cunningham right there as a redshirt sophomore. Cole Stockton as a 3.5-star, but this guy's a senior. And I think this is a recruit that Texas is going to really aim for right now. They're fighting SMU tooth and nail right now for the guy. But Derek Quintana is run block. I think he'd really fit the scheme that Azul wants for Seaman Wells.
I think Quintana was their top recruit. He may not have been their star, but I think he was the guy that Azul wanted most out of this class. And I think they're going to end up getting him.
Well, after losing Charlie Becker, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think they need some strength on that offensive line. I think Quintana will give it to them. They also, I think if they said they land Littlejohn, they're also in another battle with North Texas for Ted Stanford. Great name, too.
Dang, these are like Ted Stanford. I'm trying to look for this guy. This might be a smaller battle right now.
Yeah, they're fighting North Texas. It's them one-on-one for Ted Stanford. Now, looking at the inside linebacker position there, wow. So at the Mike linebacker, Texas has right now a 4-star freshman who, while he might not get much better during his career, is already one of the best inside linebackers in the conference. Nehemiah Staples, and he's played 3 games. From Luther, Oklahoma. Took a redshirt year, and when he really could have come on and started as a freshman. So it's going to be interesting to see why they're recruiting. Well, he's only a redshirt freshman. They're recruiting another kind of Mike linebacker type. But they'll be a guy that played a little bit down the road. So I know I said everybody, but I think North Texas takes that guy, which – talk about another conference. They also got Joseph Nugent from out of Texas, the 4.5-star outside linebacker. So beware of the
North Texas Mean Green.
North Texas Mean Green.
Special props to North Texas. These are some very highly touted recruits that they're aiming for. We don't know which ones they're going to take, but at least they're trying to they're taking a risk. And so, we'll see how it goes. Props to them.
Yeah. All right. Well, that should wrap it up about we went a little longer. We went about 2 hours. Last time we went an hour and a half. But I think we covered a lot. We got to talk about a bunch of different teams. And I think that wraps up. Like I said before, I'm Coach DangerZoneh from the TCU Horned Frogs.
This is TuscanSota, the Bears. Sick 'em.
And we all see you next time.
All right.